Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the marvelous youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. What's shaking today, my friend?
Not too much. Typical Monday for me. I got a check in the mail just now, and I got a wedding present from one of my groomsmen that was thoughtful. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the check, too. So things are going well as of the last 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, checks are always good. Anytime you get money in the mail, that's a good thing. Well, I told you before the show, my mouth is in la-la land right now. I got to share it with the listeners. Maybe I'm under a rock, but you never heard of these either. So I was working today, stocking the cooler up front, and I saw this red box of Mike and Ike's. And like I told you, I thought, well, that's probably like the hot ones, like fiery Mike and Ike's. No, it's like watermelon, raspberry, cherry, fruit punch, like all the good red flavors. And they're called Red Rageous Mike and Ike's. I'm like, for $1, I'm trying these bad boys. I'm going to spend a lot more bucks on these things, Kevin. They are like heaven. Like, you know, before we recorded the show, I went to pour some in my mouth, hit a bump, got like a quarter of the box in my mouth.
Yeah,
a little too many
really
at
good.
one time.
Troy, I also have a red box of, not a red box, a red whatever container of Starburst, like just the red and the pink one, because I just love like the red flavors. Just random factoid.
It's like, I hope you go on like a long-winded rant so I can sneak a few in while you're talking. I mean, that's how good they are. That's really how good they are. But we got some business to talk about today. Some big surprises. Big surprises in the Big Ten this week, Kevin. There were some that were not so big, but, man, there was some big ones in the conference. But like always, we're going to go through the AP Top 25. Then we're going to recap last week's game and then preview what's coming up this next weekend. Take it away, youngster.
As always, we start with our beautiful locks of the week, which to this point, this season, Troy and I have both locked, I don't know what it is, 5, 6, 7 games, and we've lost every single one of them. Last year, we were literally perfect and didn't lose a game against the spread in the Big Ten. This year, we have been absolutely horrific and haven't won a single game. That's kind of how gambling goes. It's like you think you know what you're doing, and sometimes you go on a little winning streak, and then you keep doing it, and it all crashes and burns. That's basically the life of a gambler. And so if you, for whatever reason, put your money on our locks, and if you've been advised, as we say each week, to go against our locks, then you've been making a lot of money. However, for the first time in 2018, one of our picks actually won, Troy. Iowa minus 11.5 versus Maryland. And Iowa won the game 23-0. So it wasn't even close. We were right on the head with that one, but we can't exactly gloat when our record is.
Well, it is about time, though, youngster. It is about time.
1-6, something like that. So, yeah, that's finally about time.
Yeah, what did Kenny Rogers say? Know when to hold them, know when to fold them, or something like that?
Something like that.
I should find that song, and I should play it during the show.
There you go.
But we're not folding. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep persisting through. Now we're on a winning streak. We won one. We're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Take the top 25 away, my friend.
Also want to mention quickly, too, both of our individual locks. I locked Northwestern minus 20.5 against Rutgers. That failed miserably. And you locked Minnesota plus 4 against Nebraska. That also failed terribly. But, again, we don't count those. We just count.
We're not talking about Minnesota anymore. I told you before the show. I am now officially going mute anytime it comes to picking Minnesota. I can't do it. Every time. I am the bad luck omen for the Gophers. So, for all you Gopher fans, I'm done. Kaput, over. Staying mute every time that we got to pick that game. Sorry, youngster, but I just have to.
Yeah. Moving on to the top 25. You got Alabama number 1, and Clemson's number 2, and Notre Dame's number 3, and LSU is 4, and you're kind of wondering where Ohio State is. And Ohio State, you have to travel past UCF at 10, and right in between UCF and Kentucky football is Ohio State at number 11. That's where Ohio State fell to, from number 2 to 11 after their wonderful game against Purdue. But before Ohio State, I want to point out, obviously, Michigan at number 5. That is now the top team in the Big Ten as far as rankings go for the AP. But again, it's the AP. It's not the College Football Playoff Committee. So this really means nothing. But this is a gauge as to what people are thinking, at least for how these teams should be ranked. I believe it is, what is it, next? Yeah, I think it's next Tuesday, I want to say, is when the first College Football Playoff Committee rankings come out. I think it's on Tuesdays. Could be wrong, but pretty sure it's the last week of October. That's typically when their first rankings do come out. I'd have to look it up. I will at some point on the show, and I will obviously report back to the viewers and you, Troy, with that information. But Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Notre Dame 3, LSU 4, Michigan at 5, Texas is all the way up at 6 now, Georgia 7, Oklahoma 8, Florida 9, like I said, UCF 10, Ohio State down at 11, Kentucky 12. No one really cares about the rest of these except for the Big Ten. Penn State is at 17 now. Iowa is up at 18. Both those teams moved up 1. They both won games last week. Wisconsin is up to 20 now. They were at 23. Not that beating Illinois does a lot for you, but with teams losing like NC State and other teams that were ahead of Wisconsin, obviously Wisconsin is going to move up. Teams will move up as you win, obviously, because teams ahead of you lose. But so that is actually I didn't notice this before when I was looking. Appalachian State is number 25, which 10 years ago or 11 years ago, whenever they beat Michigan, and it was that crazy, insane upset, it's kind of funny to look at a poll and see Appalachian State at number 25. Because back then it was just like Appalachian State was just this power in FCS or D2 or whatever it was they were in at the time. Now they're in the Sun Belt Conference. It's a conference that most people have heard of at least. And they've been good these last few years. They haven't been top 25 good, but they've been kind of knocking on the door on it to me. They are a legitimate program, at least. It's not a complete joke to lose to a team like that. So I think hats off to that program for 10 years ago being what they were. It was just like, oh my God, this is the biggest upset ever, and now they're like a top 25 team. I think it's kind of cool. But anyway, again, Big Ten, Michigan 5, Ohio State 11, Penn State 17, Iowa 18, Wisconsin 20, and then you got Purdue and Michigan State in others receiving votes. So Purdue started 0-3. And now they are 4-3, and that all changed when they had a little injury to one of their quarterbacks, and now David Blau has stepped up, and they've been perfect ever since, beating Boston College, who was ranked, and Ohio State was obviously ranked number 2 last week, and they beat them by 29 points. So that was a game that we will surely talk about in a second here. Unless you got anything to add, Troy, I was going to get right into Purdue and Ohio State.
No, I don't really have much to add. I mean, you look at it, we can talk about Ohio State falling 2-11. I kind of think that the voters, do they think it was that terrible? Is Ohio State, to me, the 11th best team in the country? No. I don't think they should have fell to 11. I was thinking maybe around 8 or 9, but not out of the top 10.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess when you look at Purdue, okay, they're 3-3, but one of their wins was also, like you said, against Boston College when they were ranked. So I don't understand how the voters are dropping Ohio State to 11. And now, again, we know that it's not every voter making them 11, but that even kind of makes my point even more valid. So there's probably some people that voted Ohio State like 6 or 7, and there's probably some that had them like 15.
Right.
But when you look at it, are they really the 11th best team? No. They had a bad week. I know that people say, well, college football, and we say it all the time, every game matters. Every week you got to bring your A game. Well, they had a blip on the radar, and they had one last year, but I still don't think they should have fell to 11, Kevin. And I'm being an impartial Big Ten host. I'm not saying that because we host a Go Big show. I'm saying that because Ohio State, even with a loss to Purdue, they're still a top 10 team. They're not the 11th team. So that's my only take on the AP top 25, is that I don't think Ohio State should have fallen out of the top 10.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I did just look it up when the College Football Playoff Committee reveals their first rankings of the year, and I love that they wait, 8 and 9 weeks. It's going to be 9 weeks technically. It comes out Tuesday, October 30th. So that's when the first real rankings truly come out that actually matter for who the top 4 teams are. But so moving on, like I said, wanted to start with Purdue, Ohio State. That was certainly the most interesting game as far as national stuff goes. Again, Purdue won the game 49-20. Ohio State's great offense that I had been touting and that everyone's been touting, and they have been a great offense until this point. They scored 6 points in 3 quarters against Purdue's defense, which Purdue's defense is mediocre at best in general. And so this game on a Saturday night at Purdue, it's basically their Super Bowl, and they come out and play an A-plus game, and Ohio State didn't. And it's these mediocre – this is why I think the Big Ten coming into this year, coming into last year, was the best conference in general, is because you have these middle-tier teams like Purdue. Basically all the teams that are not Illinois and Rutgers, like if they play really well and the top dog plays really poorly, an upset can happen. And I don't think that's necessarily the case when Alabama plays really poorly, that, whoever the worst team in the SEC is, that team could beat them. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think that speaks to what the Big Ten is that you have these powerhouse teams for sure. But at the end of the day, the middle teams that, all make bowl games, basically, they make bowl games for a reason because they're capable football teams. So I think that speaks to the Big Ten. Me as an Ohio State fan, obviously would wish the game would have gone a different direction, but it is what it is. Purdue's defense, again, to hold Ohio State to 6 points in the first 3 quarters is incredible. And, you give up 14 in the fourth quarter, but who cares because you scored 49 points. So that's part of just playing defense and having a big lead, is that you give up 7-8-yard plays because you don't care. You're just trying not to give up 60-yarders. So hats off to Purdue's defense. Troy, I wanted to ask you this. Do you know how many times Dwayne Haskins threw the football?
How many times Haskins threw the football? I'm going to guess 34.
No, it's higher than that. I want you to keep guessing. It's higher than 34.
64.
No, it's higher than 64.
70.
No, higher than 70.
80.
There we go. 73 times Dwayne Haskins threw the football in this game. 73 times. That's easily 2 games worth. Easily. I mean, 36 attempts a game wouldn't even get you to 73. That's a ton. And we talk about this on this show. We talk about this on other shows that we do. You can follow us on Twitter at youngsteroldman, where Troy posts all the shows we do during the week. And no matter what show we do, we talk about how if you're a quarterback, if you're Drew Brees, if you're Aaron Rodgers, if you're Case Keenum, if you're throwing the ball 50 times in a game, you're screwed. Because there's a reason why you're having to throw it 50 times. There's a reason why Dwayne Haskins had to throw it 73 times in the game. And that's a joke. That's embarrassing to say that your quarterback threw it 73 times in a game. That's insane. That means the running game is not working. That means you have to be passing it because you're getting killed. And exactly.
You know what jumps out at me with that stat, though, youngster, is not necessarily that they threw it 73 times, that they actually had 73 plays that they really didn't capitalize on. I mean, they scored 20 points. But you think about that, 73 times, that even if they ran the ball 0, that's 73 plays in a whole game.
Right. Purdue had 72 plays the entire game. Ohio State threw it more times than Purdue even snapped the football. And Ohio State had 25 carries in the game, too. I mean, they had a ton of plays. They had 98 plays in the game. That's a ton. They just couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah, and again, they couldn't muster points. It was one of those days. You brought it up in the beginning of the recap. This was Purdue's Super Bowl. Purdue, I bet you right now, Kevin, they're at 4-3. They know where they're headed. They're headed to a middle-tier bowl. That's where they're headed. If they can get to, I'm air quoting, bowl eligibility, once they get bowl eligible, that they know that. They're not winning. They're not competing for a national title. So this was their national title. They just knocked off Ohio State, the number 2 ranked country, the number 2 ranked team in the country. They're elated. I'm not saying that if they lost the rest of their games, they'd be happy with it, but man, this was the game of the year for them.
Yep.
And they went out and played. And I don't want to say Ohio State took them lightly, because you got to give credit to Purdue. It was just one of those games, though, when you look at it, Kevin, maybe they did. Maybe they were like, well, it's Purdue. Their defense is mediocre. We'll be able to do what we can do because we can score 40 points with our eyes closed. And maybe they were a little lackadaisical. Maybe the full concentration level wasn't there. I don't know. I can't get in the minds of the players, and I can't say that's exactly what they were thinking. But I don't understand this in college sports, Kevin. Getting off the tree limb for a little bit. I don't care if it's Ohio State and Purdue. It happened last year, Ohio State and Iowa. I don't understand if you're a dominant team, or even this year, Wisconsin, BYU. I don't understand how you overlook someone. I don't. Because you have to know there's a target on your back. I mean, I know I've explained this as a coach and as a player. So, but I don't understand the mindset like, oh, well, we're going to go and we're just going to go through the motions, and it happens all the time, youngster. Happens all the time. Happened when I played, happened when you played, and now it's happening as we host a radio show. So it's just going to happen as part of college football and NFL football, for that matter. Take it away.
Yeah, to me personally, I don't even know if Ohio State overlooked them. I think it was a Saturday night game on the road, and you knew this team was really starting to click. Like we said, they beat a top 25 team by like 19 points a few weeks ago, and David Blau has been throwing for like 350 yards every single game, and this offense has a freshman wide receiver that everyone knows now, Rondale Moore, who's been phenomenal, basically the freshman of the year in the entire country. 12 catches, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game. That's insane. I just think Ohio State couldn't really stop Purdue, and Ohio State couldn't run the football effectively. And so it's like, okay, we're constantly behind here because we can't really stop Purdue. And that was kind of it. I mean, we just had to keep throwing, and we can't run the ball, and so we're just playing catch-up because our defense, and I tweeted this after the game, that it's the worst Ohio State defense that I've seen in a long time. And offensively, incredibly skilled, but for whatever reason, they can't seem to run the ball effectively. And Urban Meyer has brought that up a few weeks ago, that it's like our offense is doing really well, but we can't really sustain the run and punish teams running the ball. And that's what Ohio State's done for a long time. That's typically Ohio State's offense, is you run with these NFL-type running backs behind an NFL-type offensive line, and you just dominate your will, and you've got certainly a capable quarterback throwing to NFL-type receivers on the outside, and you're going to score 30, 40 points. It's not air-it-out football like it has been this year, but that's kind of been what Ohio State has been, and this year it's just we're going to air it out. Even though we've got NFL-caliber running backs, I think both Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins will be in the NFL from Ohio State as running backs. But for whatever reason, they just can't control the game on the ground. And I don't think the offensive line is bad either. I really don't at all. I just don't know if the offensive linemen aren't run blocking effectively enough this year. I don't know what the huge issue is, but they can't control.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Kevin, if they're struggling running against Purdue, they're going to have problems the rest of the year. This should have been a game where they should have been able to run the ball. Yeah. I'm not saying that they should have ran for 250 yards, but like you said, Purdue's defense is mediocre at best. And again, you can plan emotion, and we can mention, oh, this was their title game, blah, 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 blah. We can mention all that. But if we circle back to the reality, that defense is not good. And so for Ohio State to not establish a run game, to me, that's a concern. Because when you go up against another team that has a much better defense, if you're going to be one-dimensional, Kevin, for you as an Ohio State fan, that might be a bad recipe. Even though you got a good quarterback, you got good receivers. If they're going to go one-dimensional, we've talked about it, defensive ends can tee up. They're going to go right at the quarterback. You put a spy on the quarterback, especially in college, because they're so versatile and athletic. You put a spy on the quarterback, you let your defensive ends pin their ears back. That quarterback is in some major trouble at that point. So my concern goes beyond just the Purdue game. If they come against Purdue and they can't fix it, they're going to be in for a world of hurt the rest of the year, Kevin. They have to be able to find out how to run the ball. Because as their schedule goes, they're going to have to establish the run to let the pass be effective. That's all I got.
Yeah. They play Nebraska next at home. And then they travel to Michigan State. I think that could be a tough game if they can't establish the run, which I kind of doubt they will. Then they play at Maryland. I think, Nebraska and Maryland, those should be easier wins, but with what Nebraska's offense is doing now, maybe it won't be. And then they close out with Michigan. And so I think they'll be 10-1. I think they'll be, number 8 in the country or something. Michigan will be in the top 5, and that's going to be a monstrous game, obviously, for both teams, as it usually is, but even more so now because Michigan's actually going to be, could be the favorite. The game's at Ohio State, but if Ohio State can't run it and you're going to be throwing it 50 times against Michigan and they know you're going to be throwing it 50 times, that's going to be tough. And Michigan can run the ball, and Michigan can throw the ball. So Ohio State's defense is going to be in a bit of a hurt as well. That game got a lot more interesting as Ohio State's running game has not been doing what it has been in years past, realistically. So anyway, moving on from that game, that's certainly the game that I think will take up the most time on the show. But moving on, number 6 Michigan went to Michigan State, not exactly a huge travel time there, but they dominated defensively. It was 21-7. As far as total offense goes, I think Michigan State didn't have 100 yards of total offense. I'm going to check right now. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Let's see here, 94 yards. 395 yards for Michigan, 94 yards for Michigan State. I mean, Michigan's defense just completely suffocated the Spartans' offense. Brian Lewerke, 5 of 25 through the air for 66 yards. LJ Scott, the running back, 10 carries, 25 yards. At least LJ Scott came back and played for Michigan State. He's no longer, unable to play due to injury. I guess that's a positive if you're Michigan State. But Michigan's defense just completely ran the game. That was the entire game. And Michigan, Karan Higdon, the running back, 33 carries, 144 yards. It was just like, we can run the ball, you can't do anything offensively, so we're going to win. And Michigan just dominated the game. It was 21-7, so it doesn't, sound like a complete domination, but it was because Michigan State absolutely couldn't do anything.
Here's the thing, Kevin. While you're saying 21-7, do you have the stats up? You just mentioned Ohio State run-to-pass ratio. What was Michigan's in that game?
Right. Shea Patterson threw the ball 25 times in this game. They ran it 53 times. I
was going to say, would they run 45, 50 times?
Yeah.
2-1? And so when you look at the time of possession in that game, these are the games, Kevin, when you look at it, 21-7, Michigan State kept it close. No,
Troy,
they didn't keep it close.
Troy, Michigan had 41 minutes of total possession. You never see that.
That's almost 3 quarters.
Yeah, you never see over 40 minutes of possession for a team.
Well, where I was going with that, youngster, is it's old school football to me. I mention it when we're talking college. I mention it when we're talking NFL. 3 downs to move the chains. That's all you need. 10 yards at a time, 10 yards at a time, 10 yards at a time. And when you do that, you eat up clock. You keep the other offense on the sideline. They can't get in a rhythm. And, 41 minutes of time of possession, that's just unreal. It's, like you said, it's unheard of. But what did Michigan do? They ran the ball 50-some times, controlled the clock. Defense was out there. Man, isn't it like night and day, youngster? When your offense is on the field for that long, how great your defense can look.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Your thoughts there?
No, yeah, I agree with you 100% there. If you are on the field for 3 minutes of real time, and then you get to take a break for 20 minutes, and then you go back on the field, you're going to be energized, and you're going to be ready to go. When you're on the field for 20 minutes of real time, and then your offense has 3 plays, and then they punt it, and you're back on the field, that sucks if you're a defensive player, because you're winded, and the game is going to seem much longer because you're on the field for 40 minutes of game time as opposed to 18. It's a complete mismatch. No matter how talented you are, you can be the more talented defense, but eventually you're going to give up points because you're just, hats off to Michigan State's defense for only allowing 21. That kind of surprises me. I'm surprised it wasn't worse. And Michigan State offensively 0 for 12 on third down.
There you go.
If you go 0 for 12 on third downs, it's basically impossible to win a football game.
What was the first down? What was the first down stat? Total number of first downs for Michigan. Total for Michigan State.
It was 19-11. I mean, Michigan State's defense kept it respectable at least. I'll say that.
Well, they made them earn their yards, but that's fine. I mean, it looked like Harbaugh had a plan for this game. And you know what? Against a good defense, sometimes you go right at the heart of it, right? Whenever you want to take down the mighty giant, and I'm not saying that Michigan State's a mighty giant, it's just one of those things that came out of my crazy mouth. But when you're going after the giant, you go at the strength, and you try to weaken them. Because if you can do well against a strength, then you can pretty much have your way. And Michigan did, even though it was 21-7. What was the spread in this game, by the way, youngster? Do you remember?
I did not have it written down. I think Michigan was favored, I would want to say it was either like 6 or 8. I know it was around that number. They definitely covered, for sure.
All right. I was just curious. Yeah. Continue.
Moving on. Actually, wanted to bring this up too. I don't know if people did not hear, but before the game, Michigan State, locks arms and goes onto the field and does their little pregame ritual, and Michigan's guys were on the field, and Michigan State's guys kind of just ran through them. Michigan wasn't giving up their ground, basically. And so there was, jawing back and forth, obviously. And after the game, Jim Harbaugh was, I think he was asked about it, and he said, yeah, that happened. It was kind of Bush League stuff, and I saw Mark D'Antonio, Michigan State's coach, standing behind his guys basically smiling and laughing about it. And D'Antonio was asked afterwards, during his little press conference after the game, like, hey, did you hear about Harbaugh's comments? And he's like, no, that's BS. Like, so these coaches, I mean, they talked about this, and they clearly are, well, obviously on opposite sides of it. And it's kind of, I mean, you don't see this from coaches, calling other coaches' words BS and thinking that it's garbage and thinking that what they're doing is Bush League. That never really comes out. So it was just an entertaining little part of the game that wasn't a part of the game itself. But next year's game.
That's what you get with rival games. You get the nasty. You get everyone's nasty side. Take it away, my friend.
There's pure hatred there, for sure. Penn State traveled to play Indiana, and Penn State won the game 33-28. So this was an interesting game. Indiana did well offensively. Basically couldn't stop Trace McSorley and his legs. Trace McSorley in this game, 19 of 36, 220 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick. But he ran the ball 19 times, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. That was kind of the difference in the game.
It seemed like a lot more than 107 yards, youngster.
Yeah.
When I looked at the stats, I'm like, he only has 107.
Right.
And I mean, because he had to use his legs. If it wasn't for his legs, his arms certainly didn't help him out. I mean, this was a game that was in limbo. We talked about Penn State, the inconsistency with some young guys, but I'll tell you, McSorley, maybe the Heisman hype got to him earlier in the year because he has not been playing well. I mean, this year, you look at his games. Yeah, he used his legs, and he pulled out a win for Penn State right now. But unless I'm just a crazy old man, if I'm comparing McSorley to last year, he was head and shoulders above this year last year.
I think it helps when you have Barkley and you have the program's leading receiver ever in school history, and Deshaun Hamilton, who's in the NFL. Barkley's in the NFL. His tight end, Mike Gesicki, got picked in the second round in the NFL. That's something, for sure. I mean,
so let me ask you this, Kevin.
Yeah. Kind
of where I was going with this. Everybody's talking about McSorley and his chances in the NFL.
Right.
Elite quarterbacks. You make players around you better. So McSorley needed NFL caliber players to look good, and now this year he's struggling, and he's not making players around him better. What is his future in the NFL?
Right. I mean, to me, it's basically non-existent. That's my. And some people think he can be a franchise quarterback.
No. Sorry to interrupt. I'm not. I can't just stay mute on that one. He's not a franchise guy. No way.
He'll get picked in the middle rounds, and maybe he'll go to a situation where he's supposed to be the backup. But yeah, I mean, I think he is more athletic than a Baker Mayfield, but like throwing wise, I don't think he's not as accurate as Baker Mayfield was in college. And I hate Baker Mayfield, but
yeah, you actually pulled the H word out on him this time. Normally, you're just sarcastic about your love for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
But no, you're right, Kevin. I'll actually give props to Mayfield. He's got a better arm and he's more accurate.
Yeah. Yep.
But as far as athleticism with his legs, that's McSorley. But like you said, he'll get drafted probably in the 4th or 5th round, and he'll go to a team. And if he's lucky, and I know people want to play, players want to get picked, they want to play. But if I'm McSorley, I want to get picked by a team that already has an established quarterback so I can learn the NFL game. So I can learn. And maybe being in an NFL camp and with NFL coaches day in and day out, maybe he can establish something. But right now, when I look at his play this year, is he still one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten? Yeah, he is. But there's not great quarterbacks in the Big Ten this year, Kevin. We can probably count them on half of one hand, how many good ones there are, right? I mean, there's some good young talent. But when you're looking at who's playing right now, who's lighting up the world? Not many.
Yeah, for sure. I thought I had something else on this game. Oh, yeah. Indiana, for whatever reason, went from Patrick Ramsey, the quarterback Peyton Ramsey, who's been doing really well this entire year. And for whatever reason, they changed quarterbacks mid-game to Michael Penix, who ended up tearing his ACL. And so they went back to Ramsey. And, Ramsey did well in the game in general. 26 of 36, 230 yards, touchdown. Indiana's offense did fine. I didn't understand that change. I just didn't understand it. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But they'll obviously be going with Ramsey the rest of the way because their backup is out the rest of the season. Moving on, Iowa hosted Maryland, and I really have nothing on this game. This was the game that we lost. We obviously saw at the time that Iowa should win this game by at least 2 touchdowns. They won it by 23-0. Iowa's defense obviously controlled the game by shutting out Maryland. And offensively, numbers-wise, Iowa didn't do anything special. Their top running back had 98 yards, basically 4 yards a carry. But there was nothing special about Iowa's offense. They scored 2 touchdowns in the game, and they had 3 field goals. Yeah. The defense just dominated it. It was basically what Michigan State was. Wisconsin at home against Illinois, 49-20. Jonathan Taylor, 159 yards. Who was the backup? I forgot his name. Tywan Deal, 12 carries, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. When you have 2 backs combining for 270 yards, you're obviously doing well. And Hornibrook had 3 touchdowns, but he was only 13-22, 2 picks in the game. So he didn't play
phenomenal.
phenomenal.
Can you repeat that line one more time, Kevin?
13-22, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
2 turnovers.
Yeah.
2 more turnovers. Anyway, happier note. I want people to remember the name Deal. He's the real deal. Should something, I'm not even going to say it. I'm not going to jinx Wisconsin. I've watched this kid all year. I like him. I like him almost as much as Taylor. And, I mean, where does Chris go out and find these guys? It's like a running back machine there at Wisconsin. And then I've been watching him run, and I like him. Like, and you know me, Kevin, I usually don't go out on the limb and say I'm liking people. But I like this kid. I'm not saying they got to go to like a dual system with Taylor and Deal, but you just read off the stats, and I know it was against a subpar defense, but this kid runs hard. And it's exciting as a Badger fan. You got a star running back, and then you got one waiting in the wings that might be just as good, if not better, than the guy before them. Now, I'm not saying Deal will be better than Taylor, but he's pretty darn close as far as talent level to Taylor in my mind. What are your quick thoughts on Deal? I got nothing against the game, Kevin. The only thing that I liked in this game is Wisconsin came out and put their foot down early. Finally, they didn't let a bad team hang around until halftime. They went out, imposed their will, and put it in cruise control. That's what I liked as a Badger fan. But what are your thoughts on Deal? I mean, you know what, Kevin? Screw that. I'm going to go out and say this. I love the kid. What about you?
He's listed as a senior, and he redshirted in 2014. He didn't play in 2017 because he was hurt, but he's listed as a senior. I don't know if he just straight up didn't get a medical redshirt last year. He hasn't played since 2016, and obviously he's played sometimes this year, but he was like a Big Ten freshman of the week in 2015. So he would have been, I guess, a redshirt freshman, sophomore. I don't know if he didn't get a medical redshirt. I don't know if Wisconsin's roster has him listed wrong. Because to me, he should have another year of eligibility. That's all I wanted to mention. Obviously, he's talented, and he was ranked coming out of high school as a 4-star recruit by some places, and Jonathan Taylor was a 3-star recruit. I mean, in terms of talent, Gatorade Player of the Year in Maryland. In terms of talent, there is no huge drop off. I don't think, realistically, between the two. Obviously, Taylor has separated himself and knows the playbook well and does something more than Deal does for Wisconsin's offense and the way they want to run it. But in terms of just pure talent, I mean, I don't think there's a huge drop-off there, realistically. Northwestern traveled to play Rutgers, and as we always know on this show, Rutgers played, so they lost. But Northwestern only won the game 18-15. Northwestern was down 15-3 in this game not going into the fourth. Midway through the third, they also trailed 15-10 going into the fourth. Rutgers had a safety in this game. Things were going Rutgers' way for a while here until Northwestern, won the last quarter and a half. But it was still only 18-15. They were able to run the ball eventually and get some stuff going on the ground. Basically, Northwestern just wasn't capitalizing early on. That's why Rutgers had a lead for quite some time. And their quarterback averaged 2.6 yards per attempt. I'm not talking about him anymore because it's just the same thing every single week. But that was basically the game. I mean, Northwestern eventually scored, a touchdown to take the lead, and that was that. So Rutgers' defense stood tall for a while there. So hats off to the Scarlet Knights defense.
Well, Kevin, it's a pretty common theme every week that we say, hey, they're both there playing hard yet for the coach. But playing hard and getting wins in the Big Ten are two different things. And, their talent level, if they could have pulled off a win against Northwestern, I mean, maybe that helps a little bit. But, it's Rutgers. I don't see them winning another game yet the rest of this year. And Northwestern, maybe that was their thought process. It's Rutgers. So, okay, well, maybe we'll have a little brain fart and just go out there and we'll wallop them. But again, we say it every week, at least they're playing hard. But does that equate to wins? No, not necessarily. And then does playing hard for your coach equate to the coach keeping his job? I really think you're seeing a coaching change at Rutgers. And I don't know, usually in college it doesn't happen very often during the season. So it'll probably be after the season, but I think you'll definitely see a coaching change at Rutgers.
I would agree. The last game to recap, Nebraska at home against Minnesota. Obviously, as everyone knows by now, Nebraska won the game. 53-28 was the final score. Offensively, I mean, they're really starting to click offensively. Defensively, not as much. But offensively, it seems like they're scoring 38, 41, 53 week after week after week now. They're really going offensively.
Well, Frost was gonna make that offense go, Kevin. And it takes time. When you're working with a new offensive system and you don't have all the players you want, you're going to have some bumps in the road. But after a while, the players there are going to have to step up and play, and that's what they're doing. They're feeling comfortable now in the offense. Frost is able to call a more wide-open game. And so offensively, we've never really said that Nebraska on offense was terrible. It was always the defensive side of the ball that we were talking about. But if I'm Minnesota, you gave up 53, I don't care who it's against. I mean, 53 points in a football game, that's a lot. You and I are soccer guys, Kevin. 53 in football is like scoring 7 goals in soccer. That's flat out embarrassing.
Yeah.
To give up 53 points. And I'm not even saying, it was Nebraska, so it's even more embarrassing because, like, Nebraska has good offense.
Yeah.
Giving up 53 to anyone is embarrassing. Well, I guess if it's Rutgers scoring 53 on you, then you'd really be embarrassed.
That's true.
I mean,
I think Nebraska was 1-6 coming into this game. I think they had probably a top 25 offense in the country. Offensively, they're good. Defensively, they're atrocious.
Yeah, they're just on defense. They can't stop anyone. So you're putting a lot of pressure on the offense to score every time they got the ball. Too bad they don't play Minnesota every week, because then they could.
Apparently. Yeah. Adrian Martinez in this game. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, flipping quickly to Minnesota, I mean, kind of disappointment. You were on their bandwagon early in the season, Kevin.
Yep.
On this Minnesota team. Then I talked about them. That's like 2 years in a row now that they got off, and it was like they had. It's kind of like one of those little igniters. There's a spark. There's a spark.
We may have lost Troy there. Call back in, Troy. So what he was saying, basically, he just completely jinxes Minnesota. Like, he completely jinxed Minnesota last year. Like, they had something going a little bit under P.J. Fleck in his first year with the Golden Gophers, and they were looking decent a year ago. And then Troy started to like them, and that was that. And then they kind of turned to bleh. And this year, I was buying into Minnesota and what they were doing. And I still think that Fleck has them going in the right direction. But in general, this team obviously does not defensively, they can't do much. And offensively, to me, they're just kind of searching for something to work. Zach Annexstad, the quarterback, he had to get replaced in this game. I think that in general, Minnesota's trying to search for something offensively, and defensively, they're not getting it done. They're 0-4 in the Big Ten right now. That's obviously something that P.J. Fleck can't be happy about. But as a whole, this Minnesota team they need to figure out the quarterback position. And once that truly gets figured out, then things can start going into motion. I think you can control a game on the ground all you want, but unless you have, what Wisconsin has running the ball, then you can only do so much if your quarterback is just straight up inept and not working.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Because I'm assuming that I cut out when I heard you talking. I could hear you, and I was looking at my one bar on my phone. So I'm assuming that I got cut out there, and then you just took over. That was great there, youngster. Thanks for saving me. I went down to the valley on my way home today.
I figured. Anything more you got there, Troy?
No, you said it so eloquently.
Well, thank you. Moving on to Week 9, that was all the Week 8 action. Ohio State can't lose this week because Ohio State doesn't play a game. So I've got that going for me.
To be honest, Kevin, it's probably the worst thing in the world.
Probably
the worst thing. I mean, think back when you played, Kevin. When you had – do you want to call it an embarrassing loss for Ohio State? I guess you can. But it was just a bad loss. And think back to when you played, Kevin, when you had a bad loss. What do you want to do? You want to get back on the field and prove it. That's what you want to do. So for Ohio State, the bye came at a worse time, losing going into this bye. Granted, coming out of the bye, they're going to be ready to play.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to mention this too, that through the first 8 weeks of the season, Ohio State played 8 games. They haven't had a bye yet. So I'm not saying that fatigue did set in this past week, but I think it is something for college kids to be playing, I think, real football games and playing in the Big Ten and going game after game after game after game after game and being talked about how great you are, and then you play a team on the rise, and it's like, whoa, we couldn't handle Purdue's offense in this game, and we just couldn't finish offensively in the first 3 quarters, And so, boom, there you go. There's your upset. I'm not blaming fatigue whatsoever, but they were the only team in my eyes that had played 8 games in the first 8 weeks. I guess looking at it now, Indiana has. Is there anyone else in the Big Ten that has? I don't think so. At least not that's playing now. Maybe Michigan did. Maybe Michigan's 7-1. I think they had a bye though. But anyway, regardless, I think it's something for the kids. Moving on to Week 9, Minnesota is at home against Indiana. This game is on Friday. Big Ten kind of flirting with the whole Friday.
Take it away, youngster. I'm not saying one peep. Not saying one peep about this game. I'll listen to you, and I'm going to enjoy some red-rageous Mike and I while you're going over this game. Here's my time. Here's my time. Go. Take it away. Let me know when you're done. I'll make sure I don't have a mouthful of Mike and I.
There you go. Minnesota at home against Indiana. Again, this is on Friday. Big Ten flirting with the Friday games once in a while here. Indiana's favored by 2.5. I think people understand that Minnesota is has plateaued this season. They're not necessarily getting better. So Indiana, when you have a quarterback that can play in Ramsey if he doesn't get benched for whatever reason, and Stevie Scott's running the football, and they've got other guys too. Those are just the 2 guys that we talk about every week with Indiana. That's the future of their program. But I think Indiana's playing better football right now. I think that the game is at Minnesota, so it could be interesting there. But Minnesota's 0-4 in the Big Ten for a reason. Talent-wise, I think Indiana's got it in terms of where the 2 teams are at. There's supposedly going to be rain in this game. It's going to be 50 degrees. I don't know. It's hard for me to pick a 3-4 team against a 4-4 team and say, well, just go with the home team. It's hard for me to say that because I think Indiana is truly playing better football. So I would go with Indiana. They're favored by 2.5. I wouldn't lock it, but in general, I do think Indiana gets by with a win because I think they're playing better football and they're skill guys offensively, which in college football that matters. They're skill guys, quarterback, running back. They're playing better than Minnesota is. So I'm going with Indiana here. Not that it's an upset, but Friday Night Football at Minnesota. I'll take Indiana in a closer one. To move on, Northwestern is at home against Wisconsin. Wisconsin is favored by 6 points in this game, which I think seems right. You either see a good outing from Northwestern or you see a, oh my God, we almost lost to Rutgers outing like we just did. Wisconsin, I think, should win the game, even though it's at Northwestern. Northwestern doesn't have this huge home field advantage. Trust me. I've been there for games.
They don't, Kevin, but have you watched any Wisconsin at Northwestern games? Even when Northwestern was putrid?
Yeah.
So, for some reason, Wisconsin struggles at Northwestern all the time. All the time. And I'm not saying that I'm going to pick Northwestern. I'll leave the cat in the bag till the end of this little conversation. But Wisconsin traveling, Northwestern, if they can control the clock, put the ball in Hornibrook's hands, maybe Northwestern steals the game at home. But I want to get your thoughts.
Okay. I get what you're saying, and I think Clayton Thorson can throw the football. And if they come out and put a hold to Wisconsin's offense and they get up 17-7, 17-6, and it's the third quarter, and Wisconsin, for whatever reason, decides that throwing the football is the best option, then yeah, maybe you can see an upset, and I think it's possible. I just see Wisconsin winning the game because I think Northwestern has just been too inconsistent. Not that Wisconsin's been the mold of consistency; they're 5-2, but Northwestern's 4-3 for a reason. I just think Wisconsin's the better overall team, but Northwestern's defense has not been great. So I do think you're going to see Wisconsin be able to control the game on the ground. And to me, that's probably going to be the difference, is if they can't control the game on the ground, Northwestern pulls the upset. I just think that Northwestern's defense is as poor as I can remember a Northwestern team being defensively.
Well,
usually they're pretty good.
We just need to know which Hornibrook is going to show up. The one that can make plays or the one that is going to throw 2 interceptions? I mean, again, yeah. I knew he threw 3 touchdowns. But 2 turnovers, if you give up 2 turnovers to Northwestern, which has a formidable offense, that could be dangerous.
Right.
And a lot of it also depends on where these turnovers happening. You're either going to give them a short field or you're going to give up points. And Hornibrook has to have a turnover-free game, Kevin, for them to go to Northwestern and win. I know you got Taylor and apparently the emerging senior deal, and it still bothers me. I still thought he had another year. That's going to irk at me all day. It's going to irk at me all day. But you got a 1-2 punch in the backfield. You take Taylor out to give him a rest, and he's still going to have some opportunities because Deal's going to be in the game. I think Wisconsin can win the game. It's just one of those where if I'm betting, I'm not taking the 6 points. I'm not going to take Wisconsin in the 6 points because I think it's going to be a close game. Northwestern against Wisconsin at Northwestern, it's going to be a tough game. I think Wisconsin can pull it out. I think it's going to come down to special teams, actually, Kevin. That's all I got.
Okay. Fair enough. Michigan State at home against Purdue. Michigan State is favored by 2 points, and Michigan State is at home. What that means is Vegas thinks Purdue is the better team because Vegas gives home field advantage around 3 or 4 points, and Michigan State's favored by 2. So Vegas sees Purdue as the better team, and I do as well. And I think Purdue is the better team right now. Purdue offensively is dangerous. Blau is doing real things at quarterback. Rondale Moore is the best freshman in the country as far as playmaking goes. And I think Purdue can DJ Knox is a real running back. To me, this is going to be a very good football game. Could be the most interesting one of the week for the Big Ten. I want to truly, seriously take Purdue to win the game. Michigan State's favored by 2 points again, but Purdue right now is playing better football than Michigan State. I think Purdue scores, 27, 28. Maybe they can get to 30. And I think that'll be enough against Michigan State. Michigan State will be at home. They're either going to answer the call and bounce back after a very poor performance offensively against a good defense, obviously, in Michigan, or they're going to be down on themselves. It's to me, it's ultimately going to come down to that. Is what Michigan State team are you going to see? Because you'll get average defensive play from Purdue and a really good offensive performance. But if Michigan State can hold them to more field goals than not, and keep them to 20 points, then I think you could see Michigan State win the game. I think they'll score 2, but I like this Purdue team and where they're headed, and them being 4-0 in the last 4 games, I just think that means something. So I would take Purdue small.
Do you want to pull up Purdue's schedule and tell me what the result was after the Boston College game?
Sure. They beat Nebraska 42-28.
So they went out and they played after that big win. This is a little bit different than playing Nebraska. That was a huge win this weekend, and sometimes a huge win can be the letdown that you didn't want to have happen. We want to all jump on the Purdue bandwagon and say, oh, here, Purdue, maybe are they for real? Well, you got to give them credit. They beat Ohio State. But they went out and played a Nebraska team after another big win. Michigan State is a lot better than Nebraska. I know they haven't proven it, but Michigan State, Kevin, we've talked about it. This year, a little bit inconsistent. They always seem to do well against top-ranked teams. After a poor performance against Michigan at home, and you got a Purdue team that's probably riding in the clouds thinking they're invincible, I actually like Michigan State in this game, Kevin. So I would take Michigan. Give me Michigan State in the point. Are they given 2? They're giving 2, right?
Yeah.
I think Michigan State wins.
Yeah.
I like Purdue, though. Don't get me wrong. I'm actually starting to get, philosophical in some of these picks now about what happens after big wins. Because Purdue did go out and they played well. But remember, we talked about it. They got really up for that game. That was the game. Now they've got to travel. And they've got to go to Michigan State. And they have an okay defense. I mean, we talked about it. Michigan kind of had their way when you possessed the ball 41 minutes, and you couldn't really stop them on third down. And is Purdue's offense as good as Michigan's? It's not much worse. They got good skill players. So Purdue could do some things. But I think after this is a podcast, right? This doesn't play on the radio. After a piss-poor performance against Michigan, D'Antonio's going to fire him up. He's not going to get fired, but he's going to fire him up. I had to throw that in there, youngster. Fire D'Antonio!
I saw this tweet after the game that was like, how long are we going to keep this D'Antonio train rolling, and the position groups aren't getting better, and obviously he can't hire good coaches under him to teach these guys to do better. And it's like, basically saying, fire D'Antonio. I just had to laugh at it. Everyone who listens to the show knows our thoughts on D'Antonio, and fire D'Antonio is just so ridiculous. Before Michigan, they were 10-5 against, top 10 teams? They were 10-5 with D'Antonio against top 10 teams. So now they're only 10-6 against top 10.
Only 10-6.
Terrible. It's a joke. Anyway,
carry on.
We're on opposite sides of this game. Moving on, Nebraska at home against Bethune-Cookman. This was supposed to be a bye for Nebraska. Their first game got canceled, so they decided to input this game into their schedule. There is no line, but I think we will see Nebraska win another football game, Troy. I think they're going to go to 2-6 against Bethune-Cookman. There's no line because Bethune-Cookman is not in Division I. There's nothing
all
else
I gotta say, youngster, if I'm Mr. Frost, I sure hope you win. Yeah.
I mean, you've heard all of the crap to this point that, like, oh my God, is this, has this been all a joke? And is Frost really does he know what he's doing and he's not owning the blame when this team loses? And it's like, is this all just going to be a dumpster fire? And then they win a game, and now you play Bethune-Cookman at home. And if you lose in front of your home fans to Bethune-Cookman, it's going to be as bad as it can possibly be.
That would be the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. Yep. Moving on. Penn State at home against Iowa. Penn State is favored by 5.5. Penn State, to me, I think these teams are pretty close. The AP sees Penn State number 17, Iowa number 18, and I would pretty much agree. I think they're two good teams. They're just different. Like Iowa's defense, half the time shows up, half the time it doesn't. The offense, half the time it shows up, half the time it doesn't. Penn State also inconsistent because of just how young they are. Iowa's got a couple of really good tight ends. Iowa's got Nate
Penn State
Stanley.
is inconsistent half to half, Kevin.
Yeah.
Look at against Ohio State.
Yeah.
Two halves for Penn State.
Yeah. Penn State's at home. Again, favored by 5.5. Penn State should win the game. I think these teams are pretty evenly matched. Penn State's at home, but Penn State has lost to Ohio State at home. Penn State lost the next week. So you just don't know what you're really getting. I think that this game is going to be important for the development of the future of this Penn State team and the leaders of the Penn State team. And it's like, okay, we're back at home now. It's televised on ESPN. People are going to be watching. We're playing against 6-1 Iowa. They're a real team. How do you respond? And if you just fold, I think that speaks something. If you go out and you win, I think that speaks something as well. And I think that bodes well for the future. I think if they lose this game, they go to 5-3, 2-3 in the Big Ten, lose again at home. When you're favored, I think that things could maybe get ugly at that point. Because at this point, it's like, what are you playing for? Honestly, because you're not winning the division. You're not winning the division. You're not winning the Big Ten. You're not going to the college football playoff, obviously. So if you're Penn State, it's, you're just playing for pride at this point. I would go with Penn State in a close win, but again, you don't know what you're getting from both sides of the ball from both of these teams, realistically, on a game-to-game basis.
This could be a quarter-to-quarter game, Kevin. We could see great Iowa in quarter one, great Penn State in quarter two. You hit it on the head. They're both inconsistent. So I give the edge to Penn State, and you know why. It's quarterback play, even though I kind of ripped McSorley a little bit in the beginning of the show. He's just not playing as well as he did before. I still think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And so I think, to me, that gives them the advantage in this game. I know Iowa quietly sitting there at 6-1, and they have their moments, good and bad. And on the road, you have to have more good moments than bad moments, and Iowa's got to prove it to me. And Penn State's not an easy place to play. And so you got the comfort zone of Penn State at home. You've got McSorley at quarterback. I give the edge to Penn State. For me, though, 5.5 is too many. This might be a 28-27 game, 27-24 game. I don't see Penn State blowing them out, and I don't even know if Penn State wins by a touchdown. Maybe if it goes to overtime and you both kick field goals in the beginning, and then you got to score a touchdown, maybe that's how they can cover the spread. But I don't see regulation ending in a 6-point favorite for Penn State.
Right. Iowa to this point should be 6-1. Like they should be 6-1. They lost to Wisconsin, and they beat their most impressive win is Iowa State. They haven't beaten a top 25 team this year. I mean, they should be 6-1. It doesn't really mean anything. They're a top 25 team. They're, maybe the 25th best team in the country. They should have beaten everyone they played so far, except for Wisconsin, which they lost to. I mean, so Iowa's not doing anything crazy. in general with these outcomes. They're just 6-1 because that's what their schedule has had in front of them the first 7 games. So just wanted to mention that too. Records can certainly be deceiving. Anyway, moving on. And that's not to say I was, not a good football team. Again, I do think they're a top 25 team, but they're probably the 25th best team in the country. They're not special, but they're not average either. They're good. But on the road at Penn State, it'll be a good game. But anyway, moving on. Last game. There is not a night game for the Big Ten this week. The only night game is Friday night, Indiana, Minnesota. The second 3:30 game is Illinois at Maryland. Since I haven't asked you yet, Troy, and not that this is exactly...
Set your DVR for that one.
Yeah, if you get BTN, set your DVR for that one. Maryland
right, you don't get
at home against...
from there, do you?
No, I don't. Very unfortunate.
Right, we were
Maryland,
talking about that.
Yeah. Luckily, I can mooch off my parents and get BTN through the computer, but I can't get BTN on my TV. Maryland is home against Illinois. I haven't asked you about a line yet, and again, not that this game is intriguing by too many standards, but Maryland is home against Illinois.
What are you talking about? I just told everybody to set their DVR.
Yeah, I know. Moving on.
Isn't
How
it
much
the
do you
game
think?
Of the week?
Yeah, apparently.
3:30 time slot, prime time.
How much do you think Maryland is favored by, Troy?
I don't think they're favored. I think Illinois is favored by 2.
You think Illinois is favored on the road against Maryland?
Yeah, by 2.
Maryland's favored by 17.5 points.
What? No.
You think Illinois should win this game?
Yep. I do.
Interesting.
Maybe it's the Red Rageous Mike and Ikes.
Apparently, it's the Mike and Ikes. You don't know what you're getting from Maryland, but I do think that Illinois is the second worst team in the conference. So Maryland at home, I would go with Maryland. 17.5 is quite a bit.
Okay, give me Illinois and the points all day in this one, Kevin. I think Illinois wins outright.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm taking my $500 Monopoly bill. Like, this is how serious I am. I'm not crapping with you right now.
Yeah.
The $500 Monopoly money bill, put it on Illinois. I'm telling you, Illinois is going to win this game.
I like that. 17.5 point underdog. That is a big underdog pick. But I'm with you that Illinois should keep it close. I think Maryland's better. I don't know if they're 17.5 points better.
So are we going to lock? Are we going to lock this then? We don't have to lock. You don't have to take Illinois to win. We just got to take Illinois in the points.
Yep.
I'm thinking Illinois is winning outright. So you know where I'm at. Are you taking the points?
I am taking the points. I think Maryland wins the game. I don't think they win by over 17.5. That's a lot.
We're winning this one.
We've got a lock.
We've got a lock. We really got to come up with some kind of fancy lock music. Maybe when I edit the show, I'm going to just throw some music in there. Maybe I'll throw Kenny Rogers in there, the gambler.
There you go. I like that.
There's copyright on that, so I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'll find some crazy music. But no, here's why. I just look at Maryland, and I know they're at home, and they've played well. But we talked about Penn State, Iowa being inconsistent. But inconsistent when they're good, they're good. When Maryland's good, I don't want. It's only going to come out bad. When they're good, it's not good. I think this is a prime time for Illinois to actually win a Big Ten game. I really do. And again, I'm being serious. I'm not being sarcastic about it. I just look at Maryland, Kevin, and I'm wondering. We talk about identities all the time. What is Maryland's identity? Do they really have one? And you look at Illinois, it's a team that they're not good. They're not good. But even the bad teams got to win a game every once in a while. And I'm not just saying, Illinois is. I'm going off my cuff. I just look at Maryland and everything going on there, and Illinois. At least when you watch Illinois play, they're going to play hard. And I think it's a different hard than when we say it for Rutgers. I think Illinois can actually go out and do some things. And if Maryland is inconsistent and not playing to their average level, Illinois can pull this out. Because Maryland, again, when they're bad, they're vulnerable. When they're good, they're just average. So that doesn't make them a great team, and it allows Illinois to actually go in there and have a chance to win a game. I feel really confident that Illinois can go in there and make it a game and win. Yeah. I think it's the Mike and Ikes, but I don't care. I'm taking Illinois.
Yeah.
And I get the points.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, 17.5 is just too much for Maryland. My last comment for this week is Maryland in week 1, that Texas team that's ranked number 6 in the country right now, Maryland beat them. Like that's, inconsistency, that's Maryland to a T. You lose to Temple by 21 and you beat Texas, who was the number 6 team in the country right now, 2 weeks apart from each other. That's inconsistent. And they just got thrashed by Iowa, 23-0.
The 23-0 was not as close as 23-0 shows.
Right.
Again, that's why I'm saying Illinois has a legitimate chance to go to Maryland and win. What else you got?
I agree. Mister? That's it. I agree with you. I don't think an upset happens, but we have our lock of the week. So you bettors know what to do by now.
Hey, we won one.
That's true. We're on a hot streak.
We are 1-0. Well, not 1-0. We're one win in the streak. I don't have anything else, youngster. We really went through a lot, and we didn't even go that long today. Just over an hour. Not too bad. Not too bad. Well, I'm going to tell you what, youngster. You better go out and look for some Red Rageous Mike and Ikes tonight. And I'm going to slow down on the Red Rageous Mike and Ikes because it's making me do some crazy things over on this side of the telephone. But with that said, everyone, for the youngster, I am the old man. Find us on Twitter. Our show handle @YoungsterOldMan. The youngster himself @Kid Cunny. I am @TroyRobert967. Hope you enjoyed the show today. We'll get back at you next week, same place, same time. Have a good one.